Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego. Review those amazing bricks of plastic and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcome in, everybody. How are we doing today? Today we have another Lego Masters recap show of Season 2, Episode number 5. A lot of stuff to get to, a lot of really interesting builds that went on in this interesting challenge, and at the end, I'll let you know who went home, and it'll be followed up by a lovely interview with that pair. So this week, the challenge was to do a hanging build using a Technic brick, a Technic beam. And it wasn't very big. I think maybe it was a 1x10, maybe 1x12. Wasn't all that big, but they had to build off of that something that was floating. And obviously it's floating. It's hanging from, the beams in the ceiling or whatever. At the end of the day, some of this stuff was just absolutely wicked. So first up, Caleb and Jacob, they built the floating fields. There were 4 different tiers to this thing. And their story behind it was that Farmer Fred was spraying bugs with water, that these bugs were infesting this area. Anyway, thought he vanquished all of them, and unbeknownst to him, they had a nest that was built into the side of the floating island. It was a very whimsical idea. Now, what I was super impressed with was just the sheer amount of detail that they were able to accomplish with this build. And they had multiple islands with this. They had 4 different land masses that were connected. You had your big central one that had a windmill that actually turned around and stuff like that, had a little motor option function going on inside. Everything else was connected via waterfalls. Obviously, there's going to be some structural stuff there to help connect everything. But there were, even on the bottom sides of these little land masses, there was a lot of detail. I mean, super finite detail, which you would not expect for something like this. Sure, they're going to have detail. The top is going to be detailed. That kind of stuff is. But just the little things that you don't really see or you might not really stop and think about, they did. And I will tell you, that is something judges have talked about in the past. Detail on one side, detail here, detail there, but not over here. It needs to get better. And they did an amazing job. This was one of my favorite builds from the show this week. It was just so cool. I was really blown away by the fact that you had 4 different, like I said, land masses that were all connected. Just a really cool story. I just like the build. Plus the main central island on the top with the building, it was so well done. It was really well done. The next one was David and Richard. They chose to do a Jack and the Beanstalk rendition. Now, theirs was a little bit different from the original take of Jack and the Beanstalk, but they had a really cool looking giant, a nice brick built giant. And the Beanstalk build segments, they were beautifully done in how they were connected and stuff like that. And here's the thing. Amy, one of the judges, Amy even mentioned the build detail on the underside of the cloud is much better than the stuff that they did last week. Last week, they really left a lot to be kind of, desired at the end of the day. They just didn't really come with their A game last week. And they got lucky. I will say they did get lucky, but their story behind it was, if I remember correctly, the giant was not a bad guy. The Jack was climbing the beanstalk to, I think he was helping in some way, shape, or form. I don't remember. Either way, I really like the way this was done. And the thing was, they had a beautiful, beautiful floating cloud. It was really, the way it was kind of done, it was just really, really neat to see just something different, something that you wouldn't quite expect, at the end of the day, because that's where you're going. You're going up into, this is obviously a myth, legend, whatever. So, you just kind of take your own artistic liberties with it, and you just do what you do. And it was really cool. I really did like the way it turned out, and they did a great build. The next one was Mark and Steven. They did the floating gnome forest. Holy crap. This thing was insane. The colorful leaves that are just massive in size. Gnomes and butterflies were living in harmony is essentially gnomes and butterflies weren't getting along. At the end of the day, they come together and they work together and they live in harmony. Structures galore on this thing. So many things going on inside. It was just truly an incredible build. And here's the big thing. When you look at it from an outside, you have those bright red leaves, those very detailed, big brick-built leaves. And then you have a main building up top. Then you have all this little detail on this central floating island, and you've got little pieces that are hanging off of it, little what look like hot air balloon carriages. And that's where, I guess, the gnomes are living. That's kind of like their homes and stuff like that, different areas and stuff. But when you look at it from a distance, you see one thing. When you get up close, just like the judges were saying, you really see other things. You see all of the other little details. You see the things that you couldn't tell from a distance, and you really appreciate the build even more than what you did. If anybody brought their A game, they definitely brought their A game. And they have definitely been stepping up as they have been going along. They had that 1 week where it was kind of like, ooh, this is going to be touch and go. This is your one screw up. From here on out, you need to be climbing that ladder and moving better. Moving far and strong ahead of the competition, and they're pushing that way very, very quickly. It was just a truly incredible build. I cannot get over how wicked this thing looked. I mean, this would be something, if this were a set, this would be, I don't know, probably $400 easy, $500. This would be something that I would want. To have a suspended Lego set like this that you could suspend on a hook from the ceiling. Dude, oh my God, yes. Totally yes. So Natalie and Michelle were next. They did the Whispers Planter. There's lots of green that is going on this. It's a little planter, obviously. So you've got green foliage and stuff like that going on. And their minifig that they have is their main story piece is whispering to all the plants, right? That's just kind of the story behind it. It was a decent build. It looked pretty neat. And they were able to kind of cover the string that goes from the Technic brick up to, just kind of make it non-visible. Not invisible, just not quite visible to the eye. It's still there, but, anyway. This build seemed a little bit smaller than what I'm used to seeing with them. And I will tell you this, it was definitely not their A game. This was probably their B- C game. And, you could see if you compared this, especially to the one that I just talked about, and then Caleb and Jacob, what they had, I mean, you are really talking about something that is completely not in that realm, nowhere in that realm. So one of the things that they had mentioned was that some challenges, you're just trying to cross the finish line. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means you're just basically trying to do what you can to survive, just to get to it, just to, as they said, cross the finish line. Now, here's my thing. If you're telling the judges that, and the judges give you a response back to that saying you shouldn't be just trying to cross the finish line, you should be trying to, go above and beyond, because you never know when you're going home. That would be an important thing to keep in mind. Crossing the finish line, that could be your day of crossing the finish line, but everybody else could be, their A+ game coming. And then what? You're in the bottom, and you just better hope that you don't go home if you're one of the two. So just crossing the finish line is not going to get it done from here on out. I can tell you that. So they definitely, hey, this is one of my horses. I need them to step it up. Definitely wasn't their week. So hopefully next week it turns out to be. Maria and Philip, they created a turtle lighthouse. Dude, oh my God. These two are hitting their stride at the right time in this competition. It talks about, ebbs and flows in all of these competitions, or in this specific competition. And they are, they are flying high at the moment. Their stock is increasing, and they continue to produce and get better each week. So the build, oh my goodness. This thing was a swimming turtle as the main structure. like a sea turtle, and it had a lighthouse with trees above it on the back of the turtle. Colorful coral and stuff like that is underneath. So, if you look down from the top of a turtle that is swimming through the ocean, and you're looking to, and you can see what is below them in the water, you see coral, you see all these different colorful plants and stuff like that. It was a neat idea, but I was in the same thought as Jamie was, because what Jamie had mentioned is they wish things would have been spread out a little bit more, or built out a little bit further for that stuff to be able to be seen, to come across as that, because it looked like it was just kind of stuck to the bottom. Oh crap, we ran out of time. We're going to stick it here. It looked good, but it could have been better. But man, that turtle was something. That looked really stinking cool. So props to them. I honestly didn't think that they were going to be around this long. I really didn't. Lauren and Brian, they created, these are the brother-sister team, by the way, and they continue to just astound and amaze. The Palace of Sky Painters is what their creation was. It had a sunrise and a sunset with a huge, huge fluffy cloud. And I'll tell you what, I love the brick built sun. They've got the moon stuff. It was really, really cool the way this is done. On the top you had, I think it was on the top you had the moon, and on the bottom you had the sun. Really interesting story idea, really cool build. And I know Jamie just went gaga for the cloud on how well it was built and how much texture it had, and it basically looked like something that you could lay on. Like, she's like, I want to lay on this cloud, it's so fluffy. So I was really impressed by that. They are a quiet assassin. They do enough, and they're not just quote unquote crossing the finish line. They're doing enough to still kick butt and be in a conversation for the top two every single week, to be in the conversation for the Golden Brick when it's available, as it is this week. They continue to do it. The question is going to become, at some point in time, are they going to be able to outdo, the Zach and Wayne and Mark and Steven? Are they going to be able to outdo them? Are they going to be able to take the fight to them when it is a head-to-head, a true head-to-head, not a group battle? Not you do this, we're doing this, we're doing this. Are they going to be able to do that? And I don't know. I really don't know at this point. I'm hopeful that they can, because those two teams have been on it. All right. I'm going to take a quick break, and we will be back in a moment. So the next one here was Randall and Sarita, and they did a hot air balloon. They kind of had a multicolored hot air balloon, kind of like what they did a few weeks ago at their building. It was a large balloon, very bulbous, but it lacked a lot of detail. It was very much a stacking brick on brick on brick on brick. And when I say that, it looked more like it was 2x2s, 2x4s, bricks that were just stack. And if you looked at the underside, a lot of the underside was left kind of very exposed. Not so much open, but you could definitely see holes up on the inside and stuff like that. It really wasn't beautiful on the bottom. It really wasn't beautiful on the sides. I'm curious to know where the idea, I love the idea of a hot air balloon. It makes sense. It's floating, but it feels like they maybe underestimated how difficult it was going to be able to get what you want. Because the thing is, all you had was the texture of the bricks on the outside and then the color of those bricks. There were no little details that were added in and all of that kind of stuff. And that's what sends you home. I mean, you want to talk about crossing the finish line, you can't cross the finish line. I'm not saying that's what they were trying to do. They weren't just trying to get to the end here. They were doing what they could to the best of their ability. At that time, maybe their idea didn't come to fruition like they had thought. Maybe they had a little bit of a grandiose plan. It just didn't work out. But I love the idea behind the hot air balloon. Susan and Jen, they created a birthday party treehouse. It was huge, large, colorful balloons sticking out the top. They were really cool brick-built balloons. Really, really cool. I want to say there's like 6 or 7 of them. They had that huge, thick tree. And the roots on the bottom were really nice detail. You could kind of see the roots, sticking out and stuff like that. Just really kind of cool looking. Just adding that little bit of detail, if you were to pull a tree out of the ground, cartoon style, and you would see the roots hanging out, down below it. That's what it reminded me of. It was really neat the way it was done. They had a brick-built girl. It looked a little bit funky. I know you're like, wait, are you criticizing? No, it just kind of looked a little bit funky up in this treehouse. But here's where they struggled. There wasn't a whole lot of detail on the backside. You had this beautiful facade in the front. And then when you spin that sucker around, it was naked. It was bland. It was boring. And that is where the judges hammer people. They're like, dude, you did this awesome build, but I flipped it around to the backside and it looks as ugly as the bottom of my foot. I don't know. I can't get a readout on them very well. But I will say this. My eye wasn't drawn to the back. I liked the build. I wasn't noticing the back. I was noticing what was in front of me. I was noticing the tree. It looked like the big treehouse set from 2 years ago when it came out, something like that. The big treehouse set, except magnified. And then balloons sticking out the top. Amy had mentioned she wished there was more balloons out the top. Okay, cool. I get that. May have been a little bit more overkill, in my opinion, but I'm not a brickmaster, so what do I know? I'm just a consumer. But on the backside, Jamie was not pleased. You could tell he was perturbed. How dare you leave it so naked on the backside? No, I'm just kidding. That is not what he said. I'm not doing verbatim here. I'm just I'm playing a character here. I'm playing a role, right? So we'll see what Susan and Jen have to offer moving forward. I don't know. I'll be curious to see what they can accomplish because they are good builders. But it seems like they are up and down, up, down, up, down. You don't know what you're getting every single challenge we get to, and that's a problem. That's a big problem. Because if you don't have consistency, you're going to struggle, and people are going to take advantage of your inconsistent streaks. The last one to go, Zach and Wayne. Here's my other horse. They created a large tubular structure. Not like tubular as in tubular, bruh. No, not like that. It was a squid and a whale. So the tubular structure they were bricks and plates that were created in basically a square. And they were attached as, if you think of it as a rib section, and you had a bunch of those, and they got bigger in the middle, obviously for the bigger girth of the whale, and then towards the mouth it tapered down, and then towards the rear end and the tail it tapered down. So you had these quote unquote rib sections that were in there, and then they just kind of built off of that. They created the outside structure and stuff, and they had this awesome, it's supposed to be a sperm whale, and they had this awesome squid that was entangled in this battle with this whale. And it had its tentacles wrapped all around this whale. Oh my good God. It was red. Whale was gray. So stinking cool the way it was done. I mean, it felt like it was a moving piece. Everybody else created something that was neat. It was cool. Maria and Philip were probably the closest to feeling like something was, like you looked at it, it was moving to a certain degree. Just with the sea turtle. You can imagine seeing the sea turtle gliding through the water. You can imagine a sperm whale and this giant squid going to battle with each other and giving each other heck. Like that's what I expect from these two. And just seeing the squid's tentacles just wrapped all up in the whale, and I'm moving my arms all around right now, so I'm all over the place. You know, if you had a visual right now, you'd be like, "Oh my God, is he having a seizure?" But man, that was so neat. It was by far one of the better, probably one of the best builds of the competition, and there have been a bunch. I was super impressed with this, super impressed. So as I said, this week was the brick, the golden brick. Who is getting the golden brick? It is back into play. Well, it's going to go to one of the top two teams, obviously. So here are your top two. You have Mark and Steven and Zach and Wayne. Who would have thunk it, right? We already knew that Zach and Wayne, Mark and Steven are forces to be reckoned with. Caleb and Jacob are right there. Lauren and Brian are right there. So you have like class A, and then you have class 1A, or you could say 1A, 1B. It's like they're so close. They're not separated by very much. Anyway, so these two groups are the ones that made it to the top, and rightfully so. Mark and Steven ended up being the winner of the competition, and guess what? They got the golden brick. Hello. You literally went from the brink of going home weeks ago because your building didn't withstand the earthquake test up to level 8 it did. And now you have the golden brick. Arguably one of the best builds in the competition. For what their build was, that was my favorite. I liked Zach and Wayne's build because of how it looked in a movement sense, if that makes any sense. So the last two, the bottom two, Randall and Sarita, that hot air balloon, y'all, it did not do well. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, good gracious. Now, and the thing is, you know, if you're sitting there, you already have had yours built and you're watching all these other teams go ahead of you and you're having to sit there and be like, oh my God, ours isn't better than theirs or theirs or theirs. Maybe you're just too rough on yourself. Maybe you're too mentally like taking yourself out of the game. But to me, no, that's not the case. I'd be the same way. I'd be like, crap, we're going home. Crap, our build isn't as good as that one. Man, what are we going to do? And it wasn't. It just wasn't as good as many of the others. The other team in the bottom two. If you've already watched it, you already know. And then you already know who went home. Natalie and Michelle. My horse. One of my horses. Came out of the gate, punching people in the mouth. Kicking people in the mouth, rather. Running straight, taking that medal. Taking that wreath. Drinking the milk. I know, I mixed a bunch of things together. Standing on the podium. And then they've continued to impress. Their hat. Hello, their freaking hat was awesome. And now you're in the bottom two? And yes, their planter was not near as good as it should have been. Or not near as good as what we have seen them do in the past episodes leading up to this point. They have been one of the top teams, one of the top tier teams. I still think they're one of the top tier teams. Everybody has a bad week. Zach and Wayne had a bad week during the earthquake challenge, created an ugly monstrosity of a build, still managed to stay in. Even though they used their golden brick, they weren't going to go home anyway, but they still managed to survive. David and Richard survived. Mark and Steven survived. This is Natalie and Michelle's chance to survive. Now you can't just cross the finish line, ladies. You got to go. You've got to go. You have to hit that thing as hard as you can in every challenge and push everybody else around you, making everybody else say, we got to get on that level. There's only a few teams that can. I fully expect them to be around in the top 4. I already called it in the beginning of this show. I expect them to go deep into the competition. Don't make me a liar. Don't make me a liar. I don't have any inside information, but you talk about somebody like Maria and Philip who are hitting their stride at the right time and climbing. Their stock is rising high. And then you have Natalie and Michelle who were high, still high, and then they kind of hit this precipice. Not good. Not good at all. So the team that went home, of course, you guys already know if you've seen it. Hopefully it's not a spoiler now. Randall and Sarita went home with the hot air balloon. I know, but I'll tell you what, when I saw that, when they pulled the bottom two, I knew immediately who it was. I knew immediately who it was even prior to that, because Natalie and Michelle's build was easily better than the hot air balloon of Randall and Sarita. I hate to say that to them because they're really nice people, but it just was. And the hot air balloon, like I said, it lacked a lot of detail. It lacked that luster, that sheen, that shine, that amazing wow factor on the outside of it. And it did them in. And it's sad. You know, it sucks to see somebody go home that really does try. And I'm not saying, the others didn't try, Of course they did. It's just part of the challenge. It's part of the game, right? So they are gone. So next week, the golden brick returns. Okay, I say next week. They're off next week. That's why this show is coming out a little bit later, because I'm trying to bridge the gap for you guys. There is no show next week because of the Major League Baseball home run contest or all-star game. I don't know, whichever one is on the night. Anyway, and then they return for another week, a challenge, and then they are gone for 2 more weeks because of the Olympics. Fox is not trying to fight with the Olympics. And I don't blame them one iota. Not at all. Not one bit. So I completely understand that. So with that said, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because we're going to have a week off, then a show, and then 2 weeks off. So it's like, that's horrible. You get one show in a month. It's killing me inside. Anyway, so that's what the schedule looks like. So When you guys don't see the show pop up on your feeds or wherever, that's why. There won't be a show for here, for this show, my show right here. And then there won't be one on Fox at that time because, like I said, the things that are going on. So stay tuned for the interview with Randall and Sarita. You guys are not going to want to miss it. It was a really cool interview to be able to talk with them. And you see them just like any of the contestants. You see them in their luster in the show. And then you see the human behind the facade that Fox makes it, that any reality show makes it, any reality show or any show in general. You see the human quality come through. And it was really nice. It was very genuine. I came away with a different thought from them, having discussed their experience and stuff like that among a panel of others. So make sure you guys check that one out. It was a lot of fun. So until 2 weeks from now, until the next show comes out on Lego Masters episode 6, season number 2, I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it.